Cimoooooooo! Welcome to Tech Tuesday, a weekly series where we discuss some awesome tech cards as well as how to make you a better player. This week's card is Caius the Shadow Monarch, a really powerful dark monster that's helping to banish any of the problems your opponent sets in front of you. Caius the Shadow Monarch is a 6-star, 2400 attack, 1000 defense dark monster, and his effect is when he's tribute summoned, you get to target any card on your opponent's side of the field and banish it. Then, if it was a dark monster, your opponent takes 1000 points of damage. Now, you're probably wondering why a tribute summoned monster is an applicable tech card in this format. Well, first of all, thanks to Monarch Storm 4th, you can use that card to tribute summon your opponent's monsters to summon Caius, and then use Caius' effect to banish any card on your opponent's side of the field. But on top of that, Caius' ability to banish any card is huge right now, since there are so many cards in the game right now that have effects that trigger when they're in the graveyard. Now let's take a look at the big three, otherwise known as Shaddolls, Burning Abyss, and Satellanites, and see how we can use Caius best to our advantage. Since a lot of decks right now revolve around special summoning, Shaddolls have a really big advantage with El Shaddoll Winda, because if they get Winda out, you're restricted to special summoning one monster per turn. But with Caius, you only need one special summon to be able to tribute summon out the Caius to be able to banish their Winda and inflict 1000 points of damage to their life points, since Winda is a dark. On top of that, you can also use Caius to banish any other Shaddol monster that they may be playing. And so not only will you still inflict that 1000 points of damage to their life points, but you'll be avoiding them from triggering their graveyard effects and their flip effects simultaneously, since it doesn't flip up and it goes straight to the banish zone. Moving on to Burning Abyss, it's another deck that is very heavily reliant on the graveyard, because when the cards are sent to the graveyard, they more than likely have an effect that triggers. So with Caius, you can banish any of their monsters, Skarm, Graf, Sur, any of them, and then they won't get their effects that trigger in the graveyard. And since they're dark, they'll also do 1000 damage to their life points. But you can also use Caius against Dante, which is the best card that they have at their disposal. So being able to banish Dante, you don't have to worry about getting over a 2500 defensive monster, but you're also banishing Dante, preventing Dante from getting his effect. Now moving on to Satellanites. Satellanites have a real problem with Caius because Caius can banish their Denebs, which prevent them from searching more cards, but then you can also banish their Deltaros, so then they won't be able to trigger Deltaros since it's not being sent to the graveyard. And finally, one thing that's really good about Caius in this format is that the format's comprised of a lot of small monsters. I mean, look at the Shaddolls and the Burning Abyss monsters. They're all relatively weak, and as well as the Satellanites. They're not that strong, and that's how this format's going. So by having a Caius out on the field, he can get over a lot of cards this format, and it just makes it really difficult for your opponent to make any plays, since they know Caius can essentially run over everything in their deck. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about Caius the Shadow Monarch. I think he's a really good card right now. I mean, he's a 2400 body, and his banishing effect is so key right now, since there are so many effects that trigger in the graveyard. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. We'll see you next week.